Everything said on the Couplings Fire podcast are our opinions, and in no way represent the opinions and values of any agency we are associated with.
Hey, this is the Couplings Fire podcast.
Here's a couple of things you might need to know, or maybe you just forgot.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Taylor.
We're married.
And we're both firefighters.
Join us as we talk anything and everything fire related.
Based out of small town, rural Nebraska, we bring our unique challenges and solutions to the table every episode.
Our goal? To better the rural volunteer firefighting community, one person at a time.
Let's get on to the episode. Anyway.
So did we figure out how many stories our ladder can reach yet? Did we figure that out?
I don't know if we actually figured that out or not.
I remember we had the conversation, and I think we did figure it out at one point.
Yeah, because we did 12 foot for every... No, we didn't actually figure it out. Because you were trying to say it would hit, like, whatever, however feet high, even though it was at an angle, and
And that wasn't right.
Yeah.
Because I thought about it later, and it wasn't right at all. It was weird. I don't know. Anyway, so we should probably figure that out sometime. Because, yeah, that did not add up at all.
Mm-mm. It cannot reach as high as it can if it's at an angle.
Yeah,
from the street, yeah.
A 60-degree angle, it was 3 foot shorter. Which I think we found that rule somewhere else on Google or something like that when we Googled it. A ladder is 3 foot shorter than what it actually is.
I don't know.
I thought you found that. I can't remember where we were looking at. I don't know. Anyway. So if that's the case, then it'd be like 90. Well, we have a 95, right? Yeah, 95. So we'd be 3 foot shorter, which would be 92. 92 divided by 12.
Hold on, is it 90 from, like, the whole ladder or 90 from the ground? Because there's a difference between the truck length and the putting that ladder strand. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think it's a 95 foot ladder.
So it's probably like 102 foot?
102, 101, something like that.
Like, you know
like
what I
from
mean?
the ground, yeah. I don't know how they measure that. That's a good question.
Because no one ever takes the truck into account. Or maybe they do. I don't know.
I don't know. I just know it's a 95 foot platform. Is that the actual length of the ladder? Or is that how high it'll go off the ground?
I think this is a good spot to start the podcast at.
Well, that's kind of what I was going for. You had to mention it, though.
Sorry. But I was just...
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I've thought about that before, but I don't know if they account for that or if that is just simply the length of the ladder. I have no idea. That'd be a good question to research.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring it up. It just, like...
No, and that's legit. I don't know. I do not know that answer. I will find that out.
Can we ask them?
Yeah, ask them. See what they say.
Hey, you guys. You're listening to this, I think.
Listening to our rambling.
Listening to our rambling here as we were trying to figure out how to start the podcast in the first place. So when they have a ladder truck, right, and you have your ladder on the ladder truck, do they include the measurement? Is it just the measurement of just the ladder that accounts for the height? Like, for ours, it's 95 foot. Or do they take into account the height of the truck itself into that or not?
Are they measuring from the base of the ladder or are they measuring from the ground?
Thank you. That's a better way of putting it. I said that the first time. Why didn't I just say it again when I was talking to them?
I don't know.
Anyways, if you guys know the answer to this, let us know, because I'm very curious.
I'm going to try to look it up here real quick because I'm really curious too. Anyway, now that we've asked you guys that,
yeah,
what are we covering tonight?
Oh, so we're going to cover, we're going to talk about different hose lays for our crosslays and how to figure out what's the right one for your department, or start to figure out what the right one is for your department. How about that?
That's right. And I'm going to get undistracted here. I want to search one more thing.
Do 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 do.
Okay, I don't know. I'm
I'm
going to have to find...
Okay.
I'm gonna have to find some better words to research that one. I wasn't coming up with anything, but so yes, that is the question of the podcast. In an aerial truck or an aerial ladder, is the length like a 95 foot platform? Is that from the base of the ladder extended all the way out, or is that from the ground all the way to the top?
Yeah.
That's the question. Tell us what you guys think. I want to know. I'm very curious.
Yeah. Because apparently we don't know how to look it up, right?
Yeah, I have to find some.
That's usually the way it goes, though. A lot of times when I have a question, especially if it's not a normal question, you try to look it up on Google or something like that, or even YouTube, or just you try to go find it, and you can't find the right word, so you try like 1,000 different ways of saying it, and you still can't find the right thing you're looking for. And you're like, man, why can't people just put out all these articles and stuff on all this to, like, help me? And
Exactly. Jeez. Which brings us into this, because hose lays, you already went over this, hose lays on how to figure out which one's right for your department.
Mm-hmm.
We had that exact thing where we were trying to find a new hose lay for our truck.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't search the right phrases or words to find what we were looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Like, people might have different types of crosslays that they were showing, but they didn't talk about the pros and cons a lot. They didn't try to talk about why you'd use one over the other for any situations. Like, no one went into that, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, there's, unless we were searching it the wrong way, like, things to account for when you're choosing a crosslay.
Yeah.
Things to take into consideration. And for like us, we designed our own and we kind of went completely from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's kind of where this episode came from, is we were trying to find a crosslay for our new engine, or our newest engine, and the information wasn't out there.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of going to be for anyone out there who's looking at different crosslays or just things to consider, or if you want to make your own.
Yeah. How to go about doing it.
It is absolutely possibly. Been there, done that.
I mean, I'm
possibly,
sure...
It's definitely possible.
Possibly.
It's definitely possibly.
Possibly. I'm sure, like, even our crosslay, like, we came up with a name for it and everything. I'm sure it's been done. And I'm sure it probably has another name by somebody else. We just don't know what it is.
I've never seen it.
Yeah. But... Heck, we saw that other one, the Horseman or whatever today. I've never heard of that one.
I haven't heard of that one either.
So I think I looked at. I think it was San Antonio.
I believe
so. So, and at first I thought it was like ours, and the more we watched it, I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I'm sure there's different versions of ours out there, some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Oh, and we say ours, we mean like Chris and mine, like ours, not the department. So the department never actually adopted the hose lay that we're talking about now. But so when we say our crosslay, we really mean like ours.
Yeah, we designed it from scratch and made it fit to our needs. This episode, I feel like I need to put this in here. We're gonna put things down to a very basic level. So if it feels like we're talking down to you guys, we're not. We're just clarifying so everyone gets the right picture.
Yeah, well, maybe there's someone out there listening that's a lot like me and has a hard time visualizing. Or doesn't know a lot about crosslays.
Or
so
the
this
term
is great.
The term that comes to mind is clearing the bed, you know?
Yeah, I didn't understand what that was for a long time. I do now, but like, not everyone knows what that means. So we might have to get, down to
Right. So we're not talking down to anyone out there. If you know what's going on, you can kind of ignore how basic we make this, but we're going to go over this, give you guys some things to think about, and maybe you want to switch hose lays, maybe you find a better way to use what you got. I don't know. It's up to you. So.
Yeah. So, jumping in here now, we had to come up with a crosslay for our new to us truck because it was very, very unique.
It's an engine.
Whatever. Do I have to fix that?
No. But it is an engine, technically.
Well, yeah, but, okay, on our department, we never differentiate between trucks and engines. They're all trucks. We don't have truck company and engine company in our department. We're all one, and our trucks, okay, are used for so many different things. So, just saying. So, I'm going to say truck. But I know what it's supposed to be.
But do they know?
Well, they do now.
All right. Anyway. So, yeah, you were saying? I got sidetracked. Our
truck's very unique. The truck that we just got.
Yes.
So, we got this truck new to us a little over a year ago. So, it was actually in March, like 2020, right before all the COVID stuff hit the U.S. So, that's when we got this truck, and we got it from Texas. And so on our truck, the crosslays are very unique where they are 4 wide. And you heard us correctly. They are 4 wide. They're not 2 wide or 3 wide or single, whatever. They're 4. And Chris and I, doing research on some stuff or whatever, just looking out there, we haven't really seen many 4 wide crosslays out there. And what we mean by 4 wide, for those of you who don't know, is it fits 4 lengths of 1.5 inches. Sorry, 1 3/4 inches. It holds 4 lengths of 1 3/4 inches side by side, which is very, from what we found, unique.
Yeah, I've seen trucks that singles and doubles are pretty common.
Sometimes you get triples.
I was gonna say triples are even, fairly common. They're not unheard of. A 4 wide tray that's pretty uncommon. I haven't found a whole lot of them out there.
But it did come from Texas.
Yep.
And everything's bigger in Texas.
Everything's bigger in Texas. So I don't know. Maybe they were planning on running 2.5 crosslays. I don't know.
And we do have a 2, because there's 3 crosslay spots. So we have 2 1 3/4 and a 2.5 crosslay on that track.
Yeah.
So.
But the trick with this one was figuring out how to come up with a lay, or what lay we should use for a tray that holds 4 wide.
Yeah. And people are going to be saying, well, why didn't you guys just put up a piece of metal or a block of wood or something in there to make it 2 wide or something like that? Well, we thought of that, but we also wanted to utilize the space that we had there and not modify the truck too much overall. Especially when it comes to the 2.5, we wanted that to be laid the same way that we did this 1 3/4 inches to make it all easy. So the engine we got for it, 134, has the 4 wide. That's our mainline city pumper. The backup pumper for the city 90 is a 2 wide. Yep. And then our frontline rural pumper is a single stack. So we wanted to come up with a lay that fit all 3, that could pull at least kind of similarly to everything, the same lay with all 3 of them, so that our volunteers wouldn't have to learn different pulls for each truck. Just make it easier on everybody.
Yeah, make it more universal.
Yeah.
Between all of our trucks. So that's the big reason why we had to switch our crosslay, and that is the reason why we came up with our own crosslay.
Yeah. We were using the Minuteman for a while, but we were seeing problems with our volunteers not being able to pull it very well. They were just having issues just learning it overall. And so we needed a solution.
Yeah. So with that in mind, we set out to create a new crosslay, and basically, like Taylor said earlier, the criteria out there when you're creating your own crosslay, or which one to use, or the pros and cons for each one, aren't exactly laid out there in a nice spreadsheet or website.
Wouldn't
or
that
article.
Be nice?
That'd be so nice.
Somebody out there, please do this. Take every crosslay you learn and just you hear about and just put it into some sort of spreadsheet. I don't know. Yeah.
And what really helped me out with this is a class at fire school, Attacking the Fireground. It was done by Direct Tactical. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of work on the Minuteman lay, but they broke it down so much that you could basically manipulate it to do what you wanted. And having that knowledge of how to manipulate that one lay made making this cross lay easier. It kind of gave you the basic information that you're needing and how to manipulate it to do what you want.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
I don't
where
think
I started.
Direct Tactical's doing trainings anymore.
I don't think so anymore.
So, but they were a good group at the Nebraska State Fire School when they would come for that. Anyways, yeah. So our own cross lay, we call it the Switchback lay. Chris came up with a name. Like he does with everything, including our podcast.
That's because it was the only name I could think of, and you weren't coming up with any.
That's true. I think I had one, but you didn't like it. But I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember what it was.
Apparently, it wasn't that memorable.
So yeah, with the Switchback lay, or this lay that we created, it sits in a 4-wide tray.
And it's able to be manipulated to a 2-wide or a single stack.
Yeah.
So.
The 3-wide, we haven't tried that yet, but the 2-wide and the single wide we have.
I don't know how you'd manipulate to it. You'd have to. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I don't know what
But
you do either. So to put it basic here, like I said, we developed it for a 4-wide tray. Basically, we put 50 foot of hose or a length of hose in each stack, and then we hang a loop out on the first stack and the third stack, and that basically allows us to clear the hose bed in 50 foot. And when it's all pulled out, the reason for the name is it looks like a switchback road, like when you're going up a mountain or something like that, and that's where the name came from.
yeah, it pulls super cleanly and easily. It's pretty flawless. We pulled it, I don't know how many times, so many times. Reloaded it and pulled it, reloaded it, pulled it. And
just trying it and making sure it worked and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the big things we were running into was when the loads were pulled. A lot of times they'd get crossed or they'd end up in a knot or something, and someone would have to go back and really work on flaking it out to get it to work properly, or when get pulled properly, and that's when it got put in line. So this was a very simple, very easy load to be able to load. It almost
needs no flaking.
Yeah, it's a one-person job. Given you got 50 foot to work with, it's a one-person job.
Yeah, I mean, if it does need a little bit, it's not much. It's very simple. Like, it's crazy how easily it comes out of the truck. I was very, very happy with that. And it's funny, so when you pull it out, the first and third loop, or the first and third stack, so the first being what hooks to the truck, gets a loop on it, and then the fourth stack would have your nozzle on it. So when you go up to pull it, you can do it several different ways. You can put one arm through both loops if you want to. You have more potential of it getting some a little bit of tangled up, not really tangled up, but overlap.
Just the hose crossing.
Yeah. So the way I like to do it and the way we practice on it was to pick up the nozzle, put your right arm through the third loop, put your left arm through the first loop, so like it's behind you, and then you just walk out straight. And you basically, the way to do it perfectly is you stick out your hands side to side, arms open wide, basically like a big old diva on a show choir stage or like a musical stage, just strutting out there, showing your stuff. It looks a little goofy, don't get me wrong, but it pulls so easy. And you could do that with a little bit of hustle. You're going to really look like a diva with a little bit of hustle, like jazz hands or whatever. But, like, you can do it with your arms in a little bit, too. But, again, you're going to have a little bit more of the
potential for a cross in it.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if you keep your arms stretched out, it looks a little goofy, but it's going to pull clean. It's going to pull really clean.
Super clean.
So, it's pretty great. I think we pulled this, I don't know how many times. Like, way too many times. And Chris pulled it a lot too, but we had me pull it a lot specifically for a few reasons. First of all, I'm very short. And some of the crosslays on this truck the top one was pretty high. I think we ended up pulling off the second one if I remember right. But like the top one's pretty high, and we did pull it off of that one a few times to test it out. But we determined that if I could do it, I try to be good. I do as much training as I can. If you guys have been paying attention, I get out there and do stuff. But if I can do it, really, there is really no reason why anyone on our department shouldn't be able to do it. So I'm not the most athletic person out there, and I'm one of the shortest people on the department, So if I can do it, pretty much anyone can do it. So we made sure that I'd be able to do it perfectly by myself, and it was so easy. It's crazy how easy this is. And I like the Minuteman, I do. But this was way easier than that, too.
Yeah, you don't have to put the weight of hose on your shoulder.
Exactly.
Like
and I could do it, don't get me wrong, but it was heavy on my shoulder. And it'd be good if you're walking a long ways, or whatever for it. But again, with a Minuteman, it was hard for me to flake it out, just like a lot of our volunteers were saying too. It was hard for them to get the groove of the Minuteman, whereas this was so easy. You almost couldn't screw it up. Almost.
Yeah.
You could screw it up if you really tried, but you almost couldn't screw it up.
Yeah, it's very simple.
So okay.
I think you kind of went over this already, but you can cut it out later if you want it. Like Taylor was saying, it's 4 rows, and row number 1 is connected to the truck with row number 4 on the nozzle. Mm-hmm. So the way it's laid on the truck is the first 50 foot goes on there on top of each other in a flat lay. And then at the end of that 50 foot, you have a little bit of a loop there that you can grab with an arm or a glove. Your second 50 foot will screw right into that hose, but it'll lay right next to it. Same thing in a flat load. That one doesn't have the loop. And the third row over is another 50 foot connected right up in a flat lay. At the end of that one, you're going to put a loop on that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then your fourth length with your nozzle lays in there, again connected, just lays in there in a flat lay.
Yep, and the reason for the first and third, or the reason for the first loop for sure, is to make sure that it pulls in 50 feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the goal to clear that bed in 50 foot is accomplished by that first loop, because at 50 foot, that loop's tight. You know, all that hose
is out of the bed. Yep. So we're going to put a video out there, hopefully on the day this goes out, if not very soon after. And if I forget, you guys please tell me to remember to put this out there. But forewarning, I'm not hustling in this video. I don't have full gear on. I do have an air pack on, but I'm just doing it slow enough just to make sure that we get how we do it and how it's set up a little bit more visible, you know. So I'm not doing it as a hustle like I would on an actual fire scene. So please don't give me crap. Just saying.
So that's how it's set up. I think we've kind of
exhausted that.
Yeah, we
beat it with a dead horse.
We've beat that one with a dead horse. So
okay, I gotta tell you, Andrea, she's like, Taylor, you just beat this subject with the dead horse. I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding. And she's like, nope.
That was the best quote ever.
She just had to use it on me. She's like, I have to.
That was awesome. I try to stick it in every episode. I try. I think I missed one.
I think you did.
Anyway, going on to the next thing here. We want to go over the reasons of why we did it the way we did. And we already covered some of this stuff.
A little bit.
But like we said, our new engine, or our new truck, as you want to call it, has a 4-wide tray, which was very uncommon, at least around our area. And from what we've seen, it's a very uncommon problem. So we had to come up with a solution for that.
Okay, hold on. Before you go on to this, with the engine and the truck thing, I got to put this in. Okay, I understand that the truck has all of the, like, heavy duty gear and the ladders and all the fun stuff of, like, ventilation stuff, right? And the engine's more of, like, going and putting out the fire and stuff like that, right? I do understand that. But all of our trucks have capability for water, so aren't they all engines? Just saying.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Don't all engines have water on them? And don't all trucks have water on them?
That's what I'm saying. All trucks are technically engines if you think about it that way, because they all have water on them. And
what says that a truck can't have water on it?
I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like it.
There's nothing that says a truck can't have water on it.
So why can't an engine be called a truck? Because our engine, 134 that you're calling an engine, has our K12 saw on it and has ladders on it. Just saying.
So it's a rescue engine. I'm not getting into this.
Okay, go ahead. Can you redo the first part you started saying? Because I really want to.
I don't even really know.
Oh.
I don't even know.
Okay, so what were we talking about? Why we did this?
Why did we do
this? I just had to throw that in there because, I mean, seriously, like.
Well, what is the definition here? Let's take
We're getting into Google.
Take a quick commercial break here. Let's see here.
I already did
Google.
Jeopardy once this episode. I can't do it again.
Well, we're gonna do it again here. What is the difference?
I'm just saying, well, but like in big cities, trucks do have water capability still, right? Am I wrong?
And a fire truck.
I mean, I don't actually know for sure. I know what they're based around. I know what they're supposed to do. But do trucks in big cities have capabilities for water?
Fire engines are equipped with hoses and water so that personnel can aggressively fight the fire. Fire trucks are like firefighters' toolboxes, carrying ladders, rescue equipment, and other tools that enable personnel to support firefighting.
So, like, big cities don't have... They have trucks that don't haul any water? Are you serious? Not even like a small 300...
Like a lot of ladder trucks don't have water on them.
We have water on our ladder truck.
300 gallons.
It's still water.
Yeah.
Just saying, it's still water. It still has a pump on it. So you're saying most truck companies don't have a pump or anything?
A lot of them don't.
Really?
Really.
Interesting. I'm sorry. This is a whole new world. Like, what?
So yes, technically all ours are technically fire engines then, because we all have water and hoses, and we also have the support tools.
So it's okay if I call them all trucks because they're technically, they could be anything at this point.
Let me read this here. What is the difference between fire trucks and fire
I'm not
engines?
saying you're right, but I'm saying I'm not wrong.
Anyway, continuing on.
I'm sorry.
So we want to go over why we did this, why we decided to come up with our own crosslay, and how we came about it, I guess.
You never even ended the commercial break.
I didn't. Welcome back. So first off, our crosslay bed, or our crosslay tray, was 4 wide, which was very unique, especially considering none of our other apparatus have a 4 wide tray.
Well, and when we went and looked on, so a lot of the research we did was on Engine Company Resurrection on Facebook, and when we looked on there, nobody had 4 wide. Maybe 1 or 2 people, but they were all running AAA or other things, right? We didn't see anyone with 4 wide on there, and that has, the last time we looked, at least 10,000 members, right? No, I'm wrong. I don't know. It had a lot of members.
It has a lot of members.
It has a lot of members, and they talk about crosslays a lot, of different things.
Yeah. It's
and
all based around engine companies.
Yeah, right. But no one had anything on there for 4 wide, and it was so weird, right? And you go look anywhere else, no one has anything, and well, obviously they make them, but it was just such a pain in the butt just because we couldn't find anything. Anyways, going on. I'm just saying, we did go search. We did try to look out. We tried to figure it out before we made our own. We tried to find something else out there that was tried and true before we did our own. And when we couldn't find anything, we started to learn how to create our own.
Right. Our average house setback is approximately 60 foot in our town. So that was something that I learned from attacking the fireground class, was learning what your setbacks are, and that basically sets, how fast you need to clear that bed.
Mm-hmm.
So that was part of why we did it, because we wanted something that fit our area a little better.
Did you see how many feet that was?
60 foot. And we needed something simple for volunteers to remember.
Yeah.
And this is not talking down to volunteers at all. We're all here. We all do a job.
And we do the best we can at that job.
Yeah.
But we all have to be very honest with ourselves that not every volunteer is in it as much as the rest of us. Or as some of us,
Yeah.
So we had to make sure that we had something that everyone could pull no matter how into the quote-unquote job they are.
Well, and a busier company or a busier department's going to be a lot more efficient because they do it more often.
Oh, yeah. And we've already said in this one, we only have between 30 and 60 calls a year,
and
kind of
most
thing.
of them are grass fires.
Exactly. So we're not pulling crosslays that often.
Yeah.
So we're not super efficient. We want to be.
Yeah. But it's something that's very easy since we don't do that often. We do it, we learn it, and then a couple months go by and the dust starts building up, and it's hard to recall that information on the spot. So we definitely needed to keep it simple so that we could train it, 3-4 times a year, and it would be good and easy, and people would remember it on the spot. And the last reason why we wanted to come up with a new crosslay or a better crosslay is we wanted less problems with the flaking.
Yes, and I already mentioned this before because I do it, like everybody else, but I'm not the best at doing it, at flaking. And I know other volunteers have the same problem as me.
Right, yeah. Well, and a lot of times, being as how we don't go to fires that often, it's very easy for when you do get a fire to both people, one person grabs that hose and the next person's right behind them. They forget that they have to go back and flake out that hose and work out all the kinks in it.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's part of the adrenaline, and it's part of training and ways you can work it out. But
and plus,
when we don't go to house fires that often, the adrenaline hits, the excitement hits, the push hits, and those little things are forgotten. So we just wanted to kind of fix that problem.
And plus, when you want something with less flaking involved, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. It makes everything faster. You
Yeah,
know,
I agree.
if you can find something that doesn't need much flaking, then you don't have to worry about having to go and check on it. You know you're ready to go if you can find a solution that gives you that.
Right, exactly.
Which
So-
we did. Sorry, I don't mean to be bragging too much because maybe it has hangups in some areas that we haven't thought of. You know.
Well, like I said, this was never actually adopted by our
Yeah.
department, so it's really not a tried and true lay. It's just
Exactly.
one that works good in theory and in practice.
Yeah, and if anybody out there wants to adopt this and test it out for us, we would be so happy to have somebody test this on an actual live fire situation to let us know how it works because we really want to know. You know, and are there other problems we're not seeing with this? And yeah, with that video, you guys will see how it works, and maybe you guys can tell us right off, like, oh yeah, well this is the big problem you guys didn't think of. That's good.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yep, we can keep correcting it and everything before we go crazy with it, at least.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
yeah, so that's the basic of why we ended up coming up with our own. Like I said, we had a unique crosslay bed. Cross bay. And our average house setback, we just wanted something that worked better with that and something simple to remember and less problems with it getting in knots and having to flake it out.
Yeah.
Now, how did we go about figuring it out?
So the fun part was going and figuring out the length of our average house setbacks. So what we did is that, so Chris has a rangefinder that he uses for hunting. And apparently I'm going to forgive him for using a Nikon rangefinder when I have a Canon camera that I use for work, but there's that. If any of you guys are, knowledgeable on cameras, it's pretty much like the fight between Scott and MSA, just saying. Anyways, going on. So he has a rangefinder that he uses for hunting. So we decided to use that, and we went out several nights in a row. We just drove our district, and we went and we kind of, we were just driving the truck, in our truck, in our personal truck, not one of the engines. And we'd kind of be where we would set the engine up on the street for a house fire. And then we would range find where the front door was. And we did this throughout most of the town, I think. We went kind of everywhere into different areas of town and to, just because everyone has this. They have higher and lower end areas of town. Maybe they have some areas of town where the driveways are super long and they have a nice big entryway, and some that are like super next to the street. Everyone has stuff like that.
Well, you got old parts of town, new parts of town.
Yeah, exactly.
Older parts of town tend to have the longer driveways, and on the opposite spectrum, if you have the super newer stuff, they're tending to have the longer driveways again too. So
yeah.
You have everywhere.
So we're trying to find something that works overall with most of what we do, or at least close, right? So we ended up figuring out that we had about 60 feet on this. We used the rangefinder throughout most of the town. I mean, some were a little bit more, some were a little bit less. But even if it were a little bit less, it was close enough where it didn't make much of a difference. And even at that, let's say you did have an accident and you did charge it before it was out of the bed. Okay, you could pull that out and you could, I feel like it'd be easier to deal with than like a whole bunch of it left in the bed still.
Well, our average is 60 foot.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some closer, but yeah, like you said.
That's why we pull it at 50 foot.
Yeah, and even if you got charged before or whatever, I mean, you're still only talking maybe 10 foot of hose in the bed.
Yeah, which isn't much.
Yeah.
So, and if you guys, I mean, that's a great idea. If you guys have a rangefinder, use that. If you guys have anyone who's hunting around who has one, a lot of golfers have rangefinders. I think otherwise, just, I wouldn't go buying one just for this. If you have other uses for it, you could buy one, but I would say just put a plea out on Facebook or somewhere else to like figure out if anyone has a rangefinder, if one of your members don't, and get one that you can borrow for a couple nights and going around your district and doing this, just to kind of figure out how far set back your houses are. So.
Yep. So after we found our average house setback, the next thing we had to kind of follow, another guideline we had to follow, I guess, was our crosslays. We run a 200-foot crosslay. So we had to accommodate for 200 foot of hose. That one's pretty simple. It's just most people either run 150, 200, or I think, a 300-foot crosslay.
Yeah.
Those are pretty common crosslays.
Mm-hmm.
So our department, we use the 200 crosslay, so we knew that's the length of hose that we needed to put on there.
Oh yeah, and for us, we wanted it to pull off in 50 feet for average setback at 60 feet. It became pretty easy at 50 foot because it's just one length of hose for each stack. So for us, it was pretty easy. For you guys, if you come up with your own, it might be a little bit more difficult, but you just kind of divide it out and figure out where you need to be.
Yeah, and that's the next criteria on here is we had to have it set up in a 4-wide pattern, I guess is what you'd say, or a 4-wide tray. So yeah, we did 200 foot divided by 4. That's 50 foot in each stack.
Yeah.
We covered the 4, so.
Yeah, and then the last criteria we had to go to figure this out, like we already mentioned before, we had to make sure it fit our rule mainline pumper and a backup city pumper. You know, so the backup city pumper, like we said, has 2 rows for the crosslay. So then the rule pumper then has a single stack crosslay for everything. And we determined, I don't think we tried it on every one. Did we?
No, we didn't try it, but
it will work on every one. It may take a little bit more flaking out, but not much.
No, I think as long as you got it set up and they're right, it'd come out just as fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I.
It can be modified very easily for the same pole off of everything.
Yep. So that was kind of our criteria that we went with: setback, the length of hose that we had, what our truck was capable of. In this case, 4 rows, and then can it be adapted to the rest of the trucks?
Yeah.
So that's the criteria that we went forth with, and or made our new crosslay from.
Mm-hmm. So one thing you have to consider when you choose a crosslay that you're going to put on a truck, if you're going to switch or if you're having a new truck that you have to accommodate to or whatever, you have to think of the ease of your crosslay that you're going to use for your department. You have to be very honest with yourself. Is your department going to train, or do you just need easy? You know, are you guys going to be able to train every single week or every practice on this crosslay, or is it unrealistic for what you guys are going up against? You know, maybe you only have a couple of house fires a year like we do. You know,
and easy isn't
bad.
necessarily a bad thing. Like, we're not talking down to those people that use a quote unquote easy crosslay, because if you don't go to that many fires, all your guys probably know how to pull it.
Yeah, and that's a win.
Yeah,
it's a win if you guys do the job and if you get it done. So you have to be very honest with yourself when you're coming up with stuff what you need. So what's right for your department isn't going to be right with every other department necessarily. It is very individual to what you guys run and use. So just make sure that you guys are picking out whatever crosslay works best for you and what you think you guys are going to be able to do.
Yeah, and don't let other departments tell you what to do either.
Yes.
We hear the argument all the time that the Minuteman's the lay to use and the AAA's out. You know, that's a dumb crosslay to use or whatever the case.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time, but yet the AAA, though it's hard to relay back in,
it takes quite a bit of people.
And we'll go over that later, but it's honestly one of the simplest to pull.
Yeah, and I know plenty of professional departments that, I shouldn't say professional, career, because a lot of volunteer departments should be professional, just saying. Anyways, a lot of career departments that use the AAA and love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of career departments that use the Minuteman and love it. And there's tons of other lays out there. And it really depends on what you guys are using it for. So there's no one crosslay that's different or that's bad compared to another. It's just what makes sense for what you guys go to. So, overall, don't think you have to do a crosslay that somebody else tells you. Make sure you're doing it from what your criteria is, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, if you have the same criteria as us, or if you have your own specific criteria, just make sure you do something that fits your department and the needs of your department. Don't let, like you said, let, even if there's 2 or 3 other departments saying that's not the load you should use, don't dismiss them right away, but at the same time, if you think they want you to use a Minuteman or they want you to use a AAA and you're this ain't gonna work for us, then do a different one.
Yeah, and that comes back around to what we mentioned very, very briefly at the beginning of this podcast of our department not adopting the crosslay that Chris and I came up with. And it's okay. They believed that it was better for the department to use a AAA, and that's their say. It's okay that they didn't adopt the one that Chris and I came up with. We still think it's a good crosslay overall, but it's okay that they use something different because they think that's the right one, and that's okay.
Yeah, because that's what fits the needs of the department.
Yes, exactly. So
and that's great. we put the time in making this new one, and in the sake of bettering things, not to prove ourselves better than anyone else. And they decided the other one was better, and that's fine. So, and there's no problem. It definitely works for our department. All right, so now, should we move on to the pros and cons of some different lays?
Yes. So we're not going to go over every lay out there because there's way too many. And again,
I was gonna say, which ones do you want to cover here?
Well, first of all, if anyone wants to like have a side project and go and find a bunch of crosslays that people have done and do the pros and cons and like link videos to them and stuff, like, dude, I think you would be loved by the entire fire service. Just saying. Okay, so moving, and I don't have the time to do that. I'm sorry. If I had the time, if I didn't know my own business, if I had the time to go and do that, I would totally do that because that's right in my wheelhouse of organizational like fun stuff. Like, you know, like I would totally love that. But I can't. Like, you know. So if anyone wants to do that, please do that. Or if anyone has done that, send us a link to it because I want it. Anyways, so yeah. Let's go over ours. That's the number one. Minuteman's pretty dang popular, so let's do that too. And then let's do AAA. And let's just go ahead and do the flat lay too. Because it's pretty easy, and that's what it's basic and what a lot of volunteer departments would do too. You know, so we'll go kind of maybe some basic ones that a lot of volunteer departments would go over, and then our own.
All right, that sounds like a plan. We'll do it that way then. So let's start with the Minuteman then, because that was the last lay that we used, and probably the one that I'm most familiar with aside from ours.
Yeah.
So the Minuteman, the pros on it. And this is our knowledge, this is our experience, so don't take everything we say to you
as gospel.
Yeah, for sure.
Do your own research too, please.
So the pros of the Minuteman, it is a very versatile lay. You can use it on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Anything from just basic going in a front door of a house to holding it, keeping the bundle on your shoulder and going upstairs. If you have like a multiple story building, you can go up stairways with it and stuff, all before it's charged.
So I don't remember because I was almost never on the first truck for house fires, right? So when we did the Minuteman, did we have it pull from 50 or pull from 100 feet? Because usually it's broken into half and half, right? 50,
Yeah.
100 and 100. So did we do it like that, or did we pull 50 and then 100? Or 50 and 50?
You put 100 on your shoulder, and then there was a loop at 50 foot.
Oh, a loop at 50.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it still works.
You
Okay.
still cleared the bed in 50 foot, but you could go another 50 before it started pulling off your shoulder.
I remember practicing with it, but very honestly, I was not on the first truck for house fires when we actually did that, and we didn't have enough acquired structures to be able to pull the crosslay off to do it as practice. So we did it in practice, but I never really grasped what was happening.
When I trained people on that in practice, it was for short distances because of the setback issue.
Okay.
We weren't going to a whole lot of long ways out fires. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, most people could pull it the long way. They couldn't pull it the short way, so we always trained on the short way. I think that's kind of where you're thinking, though.
Okay.
So, yeah. So you could still pull it in 50 foot the way we had it set up, and you can pull it shorter, you can pull it longer, depending on where you put that first loop at.
Okay. But you could put the first loop at 100.
Yeah. And
if you wanted to.
Then it'd take you 100 foot to...
Is that usually how it's set up at 100, or is it usually set up at 50? Or is it
I would say it's probably more likely set up at 50.
Okay.
So 50, let's see, probably the next one would be like 60 or 65, somewhere in that area.
Okay.
So...
Not gonna lie, I feel a little dumb for asking that.
No, you're fine.
But, well, to them. Because I should be knowing more being 8 years on. Just saying.
You gotta be honest.
I know, it's just, it sucks.
Yeah, sometimes it does suck.
Okay,
so.
Anyways.
So you can do it just a basic going in the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you have a multiple story building or apartment style buildings, You can go in a entry door and then go up a stairway or go down a hallway.
And still most of it's on your shoulder. So
Yeah.
you're carrying most of it instead of dragging it all.
Right. You can go around, say you need to go in a back door or a side door. It gives you more hose to work with on your shoulder before dropping it and dragging the whole thing out.
Yeah. Commercial buildings of like, let's say big old department stores or something. Carrying it into the building instead of dragging it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just when you're not dragging it, as some of these other lays will show or talk about, it also gives you less chance to snag it on something or tangle it up.
Yep.
So
And you know, dragging it as an empty hose with no water flowing through is easier, and it can be done very easily in some of these other lays and stuff. But it is something nice to have on your shoulder too, if you can deal with the weight very easily, or if you can keep it stacked nicely. If you can't, we'll go into that in a minute.
So, yeah, it's a very versatile lay. That's why a lot of departments really like it, because you can do a lot with it. You can clear the bed. Basically, whatever distance you want to clear that bed, you can set it up to clear that bed. And most people, like I said, I feel they're probably set up for a 50-foot stretch. Great for shorter, long distances, like we were talking about. That's kind of the big stuff.
Yeah.
The big pros on it. I think the big deal is it is a very quick pull.
Yeah.
As long as you practice it halfways on a normal basis, it's very efficient, and you can do a lot with it. I think those are the big pros of it. So.
Yeah. Some cons of it.
So some cons of it.
It definitely takes practice and knowledge of how to pull it.
Especially on a slower volunteer department. It is definitely one of those that you have to practice it to stay up with it. And reloading it back into the truck, if you don't do it a whole lot.
It can get confusing if you don't do it a lot.
Yeah, it can get confusing. You can kind of forget how it goes back in the truck. And Minuteman's definitely one of those, the better you put it back in the truck, the nicer it looks when you get it in the truck, the easier it pulls.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So there's some loads out there that it kind of doesn't matter how you throw them in the truck. They all kind of pull the same, but Minuteman is definitely one of those. The more time you can take it, putting it back in the truck, and the nicer and neater you make it look, the way easier it pulls.
Yeah.
And more efficient it is.
One of the cons with that one too, another one, is going to be making sure you keep it in a nice stack on your shoulder. Sometimes I'm not the best with upper body strength. I'm trying to work on that very slowly. I'm getting there. Okay. Just saying. Anyways, going on. Gonna get past that part. But keeping it on a nice stack on your shoulder, sometimes it's not easy to do. So if it starts falling over, getting in a bundle there or whatever, it's going to make it more complicated to flake it out in the long run.
Yep.
So it can give you a lot of problems if you don't drop it right to flake it out.
For sure.
And then one last one I'm going to say is this. I don't think you can do it. You can pull it one person, but flaking it out, unless you want to go back and flake it out, it's going to take a second person to do it.
Yeah, like you said, you can do it with one person. Two is great on it. Yeah, and that's just, the more you practice it, the easier it gets. But I think you're right. I think unless you're going a long distance where you're actually stretching the hose out the full length, you're going to need someone to flake it.
Yeah, and if you're stretching out the full length, you just let it drop off your shoulder as you go. You know, you just keep letting it fly off, you know?
Yeah.
It's going to make it really easy. But yeah, if you need to drop it and flake it out, you're probably going to want a second person there to help you.
Yeah, and that's where that 50-foot, you can clear the bed in 50-foot, but when you still have 100-foot of hose on your shoulder, that's where your second person really comes in handy, is to flake out that 100-foot that you have on your shoulder.
Yeah. So that's with that. Let's go on to the AAA.
All right, so what's the pros of a AAA?
So the pros of the AAA, it's super easy to deploy. You kind of can't screw it up. It just comes out very easily. You have to do maybe a little flaking with it, but not much. You can do it with one person pulling it. That's a good pro. That's all I gotta say on that. Do you have any other pros for it?
No, that's really the big one with the AAA. It's really easy to deploy, and if you got a long distance to go, it's also a good good lay for that.
It's good and bad because it's good because it's easy and it takes, since it's a AAA, it goes in thirds, hence the name. But you still have to drag it that full way. Again, an empty hose isn't that bad, but it can get snagged.
It can get snagged, but I'm not too concerned about honestly dragging it on the ground. It's a fire hose, so.
Yeah. So overall, it's a good lay.
Now, with it getting snagged, if you pull it out and you got to go around a few corners, like you're saying, or up a stairway or something like that, yeah, that dragging that hose, it's going to get snagged on something. It can get snagged on corners.
You're starting to go into the cons here.
Sorry. So, yeah, it's really easy to deploy, and it's really good for longer distances. Mm-hmm. Longer, straighter distances.
So, like, if you're going into, like, let's say, a commercial building of, like, your local Walmart or something like that,
or even if you just have a residential house, it's just got a long driveway.
So, some cons to this. Are we done with the pros?
I think so.
Okay. So on to the cons. The AAA can be very hard to relay. Okay, this is a lay that you can't do on your own. All right, you can't. So if you're practicing by yourself at the station or whatever, you can't relay it by yourself very easily. I don't know if I'd even want to attempt it. It's tough. Because it takes us, how many people?
Whoever's standing around,
but it tends to be like 5 to 9 people relaying this dang thing. So I think at a minimum, you probably want 3.
Yeah, I was just saying, right? I think you could do it with 3 or 4 people.
But still, it's tough to keep it stacked the whole way. Because the way you do this is you lay it out straight, and you relay it in thirds, but you stack it all on top of each other in thirds and relay it in the truck like that. So you want to keep too much air from getting in there while you're relaying it and everything. It's just, it's very tough to relay it correctly and to make it look good. It's going to look, I shouldn't say it's going to look. A lot of times I see it relayed by a lot of different departments out there. It's very messy when it gets relayed. Messy. It does.
It still pulls good.
Yeah, it does.
It just doesn't look very clean.
Exactly. It's like, it's one of those, you're like, did they, what? Why is it, why is it messy? Like, what? So we like to say we don't judge people on their crosslay lays on how well it looks, but come on. You kind of do.
I'm the person that loves a clean crosslay, though.
Right?
Have that pride. Have the cleanness of it.
A clean crosslay shows you have a lot of pride in it, So
yeah, I can't say a messy crosslay means you're not prideful in your job. It shows. It shows.
It's kind of like someone's appearance,
Yeah.
If they come with you with grease all over, like how you look sometimes when you go for work, Chris. Versus somebody who's in a suit and nice and going in there. It's very different. So
Anyway.
So there's that, but it is hard to relay alone. You can't really do it. Maybe somebody can. I am very impressed by you.
I want to see a video if that is the case.
So. Relay a AAA by yourself and send us a video because we want to see this. But yeah, we think kind of at a minimum, it almost takes 3 people.
I'd say it's probably pretty close. 3 to 4 people.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so another con to it takes at least 66 feet to clear the hose bed. So for us and what we were trying to do, we were trying to get it out in 60 feet or less. So 66 feet, granted, it's 6 feet more, but it's also 6 feet more.
Well, see, and the thing that gets at is 6 feet really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that much. But the way the AAA is stacked in threes, 6 foot, that's not just 6 foot. That's 6 times 3.
So you have all this pressure in the hose bed. Once it gets to pressure, then it might be so hard to get that last 6 foot out.
Well, like I said, you're not 6 foot. You're lacking 24? 12 times 6.
12 times 6?
No, not
you mean
12
6 times 3?
Yeah, 6 times 3, that's what I meant.
18.
I was getting there. You have 18 foot of hose still in that hose bed, and since it's folded and you have 3 hoses right there, then when you charge that, if it hasn't cleared the bed, all of a sudden that expands, and now it's stuck in the hose tray. If you have another tray above it,
And you have to figure out how to get out there. You have to pull, you have to pry, you have to...
And
because sometimes it doesn't come out easy.
Yeah. And one thing that we've ran into in the past is if you don't clear that bed and people recognize that you need to clear that bed, they just pull it out and put it on the ground right in front of the truck, which makes a big mess, makes flaking it out very difficult, especially if it gets charged.
I mean, you like spaghetti for a meal. I love spaghetti, but I don't want it on a fire scene.
Yeah. So, yeah, we don't mean to put our our opinion in on this too much.
Yeah, we do. Hold on. Yes, we do.
We do. But I mean, we don't mean to downplay it too much because it is still a valid lay.
It is.
And if it's right for your department, just know the cons of it. But we I feel safe saying we are not huge fans of the AAA.
You're good in saying that, at least for my take. Yeah.
And our department uses it, and we've learned to make the most of it. We've learned the cons of it, so we know how to counter it.
Exactly. Counter it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely, like we said before, if it's right for your department, who cares what other departments think?
Yeah, we get down on this one, so that's the only reason we're saying this.
Yeah, but, if it's right for your department, own it, do it the best you can, do it the best you do, and get after the job. I mean, going on. Next one, let's go into the flat lay.
So the flat lay, it's very easy, very simple, and it's great for long distances.
Yes. Again, you're going to have to pull it a long way, but if you're going straight long distances, it's easy. It pulls easy. You don't have to worry about it flaking out or anything, And
I'm sure now that I think about it, you could put loops in there and probably clear it pretty fast.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to do a lot of flaking with it.
Yes.
So, what we refer to as a flat lay is just 200 foot of hose, in our case, strung all together.
Yep, you go left, one row, next step to the second layer, to the right, one low, next step to the third layer, left, one low. Like you keep doing it like that. Instead of like straight stacks, you do it left to right. And then once you get to the end... You're
stacking bottom to top is what you're doing.
Basically, all the way across.
Yep. So
hopefully that makes sense.
I don't know. You kind of lost me at the beginning.
I'm sorry. Well, let's say you start at the right end.
Just bottom to top.
Okay, whatever.
Bottom to top makes sense.
How does that make sense?
Because you fill the bottom up first, and then you work your way to the top.
Like water.
Exactly.
Okay. Doesn't quite work with the way my brain works, but I get it.
Anyway, the pros with this, it's very easy. It's very simple. And if you're going longer distances, it works out fantastic. And you can reload it with basically 2 people.
Yeah.
And really, you could do it with 1, but it just helps having 2.
Yeah, you could do it with 1. It helped having 2.
Yeah. So, definitely a pro on that one.
Yeah.
Cons.
Well, I'm going to say one more for the pro. If you're going a long distance, specifically a long distance, you can pull it with 1 person.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's specific because I'm going to go straight over to a con. The first thing that I have for a con, if you pull it for not a long distance, you're going to need more than 1 person to help you with it.
Yeah. And like I said, you could set it up with like a loop setup where you could clear the bed quickly, but you would definitely have to have another person there to flake it out in that distance, just the way it's laid.
Yeah. So another con of this crosslay is it can be easy to get tangled. So like if you're not going a far way with it, you have to first of all get it out of the bed, and like Chris said before, sometimes you're shoving that out of the bed to get out of there. And it can easily get tangled that way. Another way it can easily get tangled is if you're going a far way, but you're going around a lot of corners. Let's say you're trying to go around a building or through in a house and trying to go through stuff. If it's not flaked out right or whatever, it can get tangled very quickly. So it's going to cause you problems in the long run. So you just have to be aware of what you're dealing with in that sense. So
again, it's just like the AAA. Know the cons and know how to counter them, but those are kind of the big ones that it's definitely set up for an easy deployment, but a long deployment is the way it's set up. So, all right, now on to the last one that we are going to cover tonight. Our very own switchback. We're gonna be critics of our own lay.
Oh, okay. So the pros of this one, first of all, it is super easy. It is super easy to pull. it is super easy to relay. So, takes one person to pull the thing. So you either put one arm through both loops and then grab the nozzle and pull it with one arm. You can pull it with two arms going backwards. I don't recommend that because I don't like going backwards up to a scene, but you do you. Otherwise, you put one arm through the loop and you grab the nozzle and then you put your other arm through the loop, and like I said before, you diva it, straight arms straight out. You just go down that runway and to your fire scene. Like I said, it looks a little goofy, but
I'm gonna bedazzle your fire helmet.
Nice and bedazzled and everything. Can I have stage lights, please?
No stage lights. Actually, we do have a spotlight on 90.
We do have a spotlight.
No, it turned into a floodlight. I lied. Sorry. No spotlights.
We have flashlights. We can make it work.
Anyway.
Anyway, you deviate all the way to the scene, and it pulls out cleanly with one person. You don't need a second one to help you pull it. And like relaying it, like we said, it's a single stack per section of hose. So it's so easy to relay it back in there.
4 rows of hose.
4 rows of hose. The rows of hose. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss rhymes or something. The rows of hose and the...
Sounds like bad Dr. Seuss. Adult Dr. Seuss.
Adult Dr. Seuss. No, I don't want to hear the adult version Dr. Seuss.
Rows of hose.
Rows of hose and the... I was going to think of something else, but I couldn't think of it quick enough. Another one, so we already covered it doesn't get tangled and it comes off very, very cleanly. And it only takes 50 feet to clear the hose bed.
Yeah, and 50, not only do you clear the hose bed, but 50 foot you are set up ready for water.
Yes.
All the hoses deployed and flaked in 50 foot.
Yep, and like we said before at the beginning of this, for us, that's the average setback is 60 foot. So we're ready for water right away as soon as we're ready to go. So, you may be waiting on your pump operator to get either other water supply or whatever, but like you're ready to go super quickly so you can get into the house or whatever structure that much quicker for it.
In that aspect, it's a lot like the Minuteman because you can go that 50 foot and with a good backup man, you can have, I think when we were doing it in class, it was like 15 to 20 seconds we could have water.
Yeah.
This one's the same way. You pull the hose and you look behind you, and if there's no crossovers in it, you're ready for water in probably that same amount of time, 15, 20 seconds. You can have water at your nozzle.
So like I should say with some of the other hose loads, another con I should add to some of those is if they come clearing the bed in more than the feet that we need, so we need 60 foot, let's say they come off in more than that, sometimes they have to get pulled to the side. So when you go inside a house, it's going to make it that much harder for you to pull inside that house to actually go fight the fire. Whereas this is going to be straight on to everything instead of flaking out to the sides. It's going to be ready flaked out straight forward and back, and it's going to be that much easier to go through the house with.
Absolutely. Yeah, so those are the big pros. It's easy to deploy, easy to relay. 50 foot clears your bed and is ready to go.
Yeah, you can definitely relay it with one person if you need to, and you can pull it with one person if you need to. It's best to do it with 2 people to relay it if you can, but you can do it with 1.
Yeah, you can really do it with 1. So, okay, now on to where we have to be critics.
We have to be critics
of our own lay.
Like some of the other longer ones, like the AAA and the flat lay, you have to drag the hose farther to a longer distance opposed to carrying it on your shoulder like the Minuteman.
Yeah.
That is the biggest con to this.
All the hose is out on the ground in 50 foot.
Yep.
So if you're going 100 foot to your front door, that means you're dragging hose across the ground for 100 foot.
Yeah.
Again, in my opinion, not that big of a deal.
But it could be.
It's fire hose. It's kind of made for that. But you're putting some extra wear and tear on your hose by dragging it the extra foot. Or if you're going a full 200 foot to do kind of a defensive on the backside of the building, you're going to be dragging 150 foot of hose. In an ideal world, if you're pulling a further distance, hopefully that hose isn't charged until you're ready, set up. But if that hose does get charged, you got to drag 150 foot of hose.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the same thing with the Minuteman, though, too. You know, almost all those, if it gets charged beforehand, you're got to drag that water around with you. But,
yeah.
Um.
So let's move on to the next stuff, because I think we got done with the pros and cons of those 4.
We weren't very critical of ours.
Is there anything else we need to be critical of?
Well, what about dragging it like upstairs and stuff like that? It'd be like the same kind of as a flat lay.
It would.
It's gonna get snagged and stuff because you're dragging it with you.
It would, but you could pull more to your arms or whatever. Like, you could pull it up more. But yeah, it could be.
I mean, as long as you didn't drop the loops till it got tight, you wouldn't be quite as able to snag it on things. But you're still dragging a hose, so I think it'd still be a fairly snaggable line as far as.
Yeah, but if you're doing it at 50 feet, it's gonna be the same as the Minuteman, like you just said.
But the Minuteman's on your shoulder.
Well, yeah, but if you're dropping it at the same spot, let's say we have the minute.
If you drop it, I'm just saying, like, if you're going a long distance, the Minuteman's going to stay on your shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Where that Switchback, you're going to be dragging it with you, so it's going to get a chance to snag on more.
You already said that. But
that's what I'm saying. That's the point I just...
But I'm saying, okay, let's think of our department now. If we're going up to a house that's 60 foot setback, okay, and we're dropping at 50 foot, you drop both the Minuteman and the one we came up with, the Switchback lay, it's going to have the same problem for the rest of it together.
Correct.
Just saying.
That wasn't my point.
Oh, okay.
My point was, like, with the Minuteman, if you're going up a stairway or something like that, you can keep that hose on your shoulder. It's going to flake off as you're going up the stairway until you're ready to set up.
As long as your pump operator knows that. So a lot of pump operators or a lot of cities or other things out there want you to charge it before you go into a building. Just saying.
Yeah, but if you're going into an apartment or a 3 or 4 story, you're not going to set up till you get to the second or third floor.
Some cities want you to do that. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but that wasn't really my point. I mean, yes, you have a valid point. Some people do have to charge that line before they go in the building.
Yes.
But my point is, if that is not your protocol, then you can go up to that floor beneath your fire floor and charge it there.
Okay.
But with the Switchback lay, since it's not on your shoulder, you have more of a chance of that hose getting snagged on something up the stairs or around those corners.
Potentially, yes. But you could still grab it and pull it up like a rope or whatever to get up to where you are. A little difficult, but you can.
I think you're missing the point, but that's all right. You're trying to defend our lay.
I am.
I'm trying to critique our lay.
Oh, sorry.
That's the whole point of being a critic.
I'm sorry.
You're trying to defend it. I'm trying to show the cons of it.
I don't mean to. It's
all these cons can be countered in some way.
Yeah. That's true.
But that is a con. It's just like using the AAA.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go into a house, it's gonna get snagged on things.
I'm
The
sorry.
Minuteman is great for that because it's up on your shoulder. It's flaking off as it needs to. It's not gonna get snagged on things. It's gonna go with you the whole way.
I'm sorry.
Until you drop that. where with the Minuteman, it doesn't do that, and where with the Switchback, the AAA, even the flat lay, it's gonna have that ability or at least that potential to get snagged on things as you go. Now let's move on.
So
let's move on.
Let's move on.
So let's talk about how to train on hose lays as best we can. Like, what more than just a specific night for pulling a crosslay or specific times to pull a crosslay. How can we practice more on it to make those crosslays more efficient and more easily recallable for firemen?
Yeah, so I think, especially when you're introducing a new crosslay, and even if you have one you do know, but you realize you need more people learning it. You want to make sure that you train on it, not necessarily every practice, but as many practices as you can. So let's say every practice. So how can you train on it every practice no matter what subject you're actually training on that day? So first of all, we touched in some of the first few episodes we put out on this podcast of the pre-training training. Because you can have other pre-training trainings than just ask the group. Chris, isn't that right?
I'm not touching that one.
You're not touching that one. Not with a 39.5-foot pole. So the pre-train training, this is something you do before your regular training, all right? So this is something small you can put in. You can do a bunch of different things in here. We talked about in the first couple episodes of Ask the Group, which is what I just, kind of referenced to, because Chris tried to call it just pre-train training. But you can do a lot of different types of this pre-train training. So one of them is this crosslay pole, right? So whatever you do for pre-training training is just whatever small thing that you want your department to learn. Doesn't really matter what it is. So when we do this, we tend to have a crosslay prop. So Chris, when you went to your advancing the, what was it called?
Attacking the Fireground.
Thank you. Attacking the Fireground class with Direct Tactical, you actually had a crosslay prop in your class, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain what that was exactly?
It's pretty simple. It's basically just a U-shaped box or a U-channel or whatever you want to call it.
It looks like a crosslay bay, basically.
Yeah. It looks like a tray for a crosslay.
Yeah. And so you make it to the same dimensions of whatever your crosslay looks like, and you put your crosslay in there. So that way you're able to put extra hose, whatever you have, into this crosslay prop instead of actually pulling it off your truck. And I know a lot of different chiefs out there from many different departments like this, because they don't have to take their actual crosslays off. They don't have to worry about relaying their actual front line of whatever they're taking. They can do it on this prop and do it as many times as they want to. It doesn't matter if it doesn't get put back right away or whatever. You should put it back. But, it doesn't matter because it's not the front line.
Yeah, if you get interrupted by a call, then your truck's still ready to go.
Exactly. So you make this prop, and it's out of simple, 2x4s or plywood or whatever you have laying around to make it similar to what you have on your truck for your space for this crosslay. So you do that, and you're able to pull it and relay it as many times as you want to. So you can quick run your people through it right away at the beginning of practice before you get onto whatever you want to get onto for the night. Or if you're doing a certain practice that doesn't take everybody, maybe it takes half of the group or 3/4 of the group, but some of the group is standing around waiting around doing nothing. You could have them go through this crosslay prop to have them keep doing something in the meantime, so they're not bored out of their minds not doing anything.
Just with anything in the fire service, repetition is king.
Yeah.
The more you can do something, the more it becomes habit and muscle memory, the better off you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the pre-training training is just one more way to get that repetition in.
Yeah.
And the crosslay prop is an easy way to do it without unloading one of your engines.
Yep. And then next is any train that you're going to be using the crosslays in, whatever train you happen to be doing, pull it like you're going to pull it. Make sure that you at least have one person, if not multiple people, pull it like they're going to be pulling it on a scene.
Yeah. So even if the practice is, let's say, a pump practice, and you need a hand line off the truck to run water through, pull that crosslay. But when you pull it, just don't yank it off the truck. Pull it like you actually would pull that crosslay.
Yeah.
I think that one's fairly simple.
Yeah, it is.
Just, if you're doing I don't know, maybe use that crosslay for car fires, and you're practicing extrication that night, and you pull that hose off. Just pull it like you would normally pull it on a fire. Don't just yank it off the truck and say, here it is.
Yeah.
So just get that repetition and that muscle memory in, just like putting on your gear. You do it the same way every time, and it makes you more efficient and faster at it and better at it.
Yeah.
You got that muscle memory of doing it, so every time you pull that load off that truck, you're developing that muscle memory, not just the yank it off the truck, but you're developing that muscle memory. This bundle goes on my shoulder, I got to reach around and grab this hose with the other hand, or whatever the case may be. You're just creating that muscle memory and making things more efficient and easier to do, especially when that adrenaline hits.
Yes.
So.
And I think we've talked about it before this episode, but if we haven't, I'm pretty sure we did, but if we haven't, when your adrenaline kicks in, it makes you dumber overall. So you want to make sure that you know these basics to the T before your adrenaline hits. So eventually some episode may get it more into that, really deep into that, but not quite yet. We want to get over some of these other basic ones first. So last of our notes here, we want to touch on once again, what's good for one department isn't necessarily what's good for another department.
And like we said before, use what is right for your department or what you feel is right for your department. Don't let other departments tell you what to use, what not to use.
Yes. I know we have a friend and we've talked to him a lot about this before. And he is adamant that we don't love the AAA, but our friend, he really does. And he explained to us he really loves it, but he explained most of the time they use it on car fires. Well, that can be different. And especially the way they run, it might fit their department very well. We don't run a lot of car fires very often. Most of the time when we're running crosslays, it's on house fires. So, and it's our opinion, Chris and I, and it's different from the rest of the department, and that's okay. You're allowed to have different opinions on departments. That's how volunteer departments run. But
yeah, so in the example you're using with our buddy, he loves our AAA because of his department, his guys has got, and the calls that he tends to respond with that on.
Yeah.
And that is the lay that they found works the best and works best for that situation. And I'll be honest, there's not a lot of guys that like that lay, but they use it because it works best for them.
Yeah.
And that's great. I'm more than stoked for them because they, that's what they like. That's what they use. It works good for them. Then use it.
Yes.
And, we've talked to them a lot. We really don't argue. Well, we kind of argue about it, but
we state our opinion. We don't argue. There's a little bit difference.
We have conversations about it, and we don't try to convince them to leave. We're trying to learn more about why we do things.
Yeah. Why we do things, why they do things, why anyone do things. That's how we learn.
Yeah, since Taylor and I really don't care for that lay, we want to know why they like it so much. Because there might be, some of you guys out there listening, that might be your situation. You have car fires and maybe you've never tried it and maybe you will and you'll absolutely love it. All the more power to you. Don't let us turn you down from that. In our case, compared to our friends, they use that a lot on car fires. Well, our car fire, we're going to use a bumper line, a completely different lay. And it is actually called the Scorpion lay. And it hasn't been practiced a whole lot yet, and it's still brand new to us, but it's a completely different lay altogether, and it has its own reasons and its own purposes. So just because we didn't mention it in here either doesn't mean it's not out there and it's not available to you. Just do the research, take the time to train with it and practice with it, and you'll find that lay that works for you in those situations.
Yep.
And then lastly, I feel that I need to put this in here, that if you're set on a specific crosslay and it doesn't get changed in your department, don't let that defeat you, because it's kind of like the fact that we came up with this crosslay and it did not get adapted by our department.
It's okay.
That is perfectly fine. And we, as firemen, have a job to be the most efficient with what we are provided. And so we have learned, we have practiced, and we have found the cons to it. We've found the pros to the lay, and we've learned to counter those cons, and we've learned to really use the pros of that load.
Oh, yeah.
So even if what you want to do doesn't get adopted by your department, just know that is, in a very blunt way of saying it, it's your job now to make that load as efficient as you possibly can.
Exactly. Use whatever you can find. Practice pulling it. Practice relaying it. Practice doing whatever you can. Find what ways that you can make it as best as you can do for what situation you have.
Yeah.
It's, and we talk about it a lot of times, it's not necessarily your call. You have to live with whatever gets decided in those departments sometimes, in volunteer departments and in career. It kind of doesn't matter where you're at. You have to live with whatever gets decided. But make sure you make the most of that. And make sure that you're still doing all that you can to serve your community with whatever gets decided for that. Yeah. It's not anything, and almost 99% of the time, if that decision gets made, it's not against you or your opinion. It's just to what they think is best. They're not trying, anyone in these departments, they're not trying to do anything against anybody. You know, they're trying to do what they think is best. So make sure that you understand that first of all. And then go to doing to make whatever lay or whatever it is your department changed or has stayed the same that you don't love, make that all that you can.
Yep.
To better your guys' self and to make sure that you're doing what you can for your community.
Yeah. And a prime example of this, I guess I can't really say example, but the way I'm thinking of it is like the flat lay.
Mm-hmm.
We're sitting here talking about it. Well, with my knowledge and experience in crosslays taking that class, I think you could make a flat lay as as I'm gonna put this very bluntly, as useless as I feel that load is. Like I said, thinking about it, talking about it, I think you could make it a very useful load with a simple loop in there.
Yeah.
It's just making the most of what you have. And you know, if it's decided on your department that, hey, we're going to use a flat lay, play with it, take the time to train on it and stuff like that, and maybe throw a loop in there at 50 foot, see how it comes off. Maybe instead of changing a whole load, maybe you can
modify it a little bit.
Maybe that department will allow you to make that loop part of that lay, and you've just made that lay even more efficient for you and the guys on your department.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just make the most. And if that decision is made, like we've been saying, you know, that's then your job to make that most efficient and being as efficient as possible with it. So don't let it get you down. Just do the best you can.
Oof, we definitely beat that one.
With what?
With a dead horse.
All right, guys, we'll leave you with that dead horse, and we hope you enjoyed the talk and the conversations that randomly might have happened within it.
It was a long one.
And we'll be honest with you, we're a little out of practice. It's been a couple weeks since we've actually recorded one, so we're getting back into the swing of it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you're having a good night or a good day, whatever time you're listening to it, and we'll leave you with that, right?
Yes.
All right.
See you next time.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it.
Be sure to leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening to us.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Couplings Fire Podcast.
See you next time.